The year is 1966, and Jim Jones went as a spectator to watch the famous trial up in the Highlands of Scotland. He loaded his Greaves trial machine onto the trailer and towed it behind his Ford Zephyr and drove north to find his lodgings, where Colin Shutt and a young Dave Thorpe were his roommates. The programme for this event makes interesting reading, especially some of the old advertisements. Cyril Lord Carpets, International Barber Suit, and of course the ever supportive McRae and Dick Garage. Unfortunately, Jim did not make notes about where he filmed with the latest Super 8 cine camera, so we have to guess at where the sections are. The start was in Edinburgh, but the event of course was based in Fort William, and the glorious Highland scenery where the sections are, all known as hills, and this bit looks a bit like Lagan Locks, up above Loch Lagan, where you have sections with huge rocks. There's some famous names from the world of trials, including Sayer, Peploe and Farley, all riding Triumph Tiger Cubs, and they would win the team prize. There were also many riders from our local Cheshire Centre, including number 22 Worsnip from the Denby Club, 78 Roberts from Manchester 17, 99 Brian Davies from the Wrexham Club, and number 71 is Dave Rowland on a BSA. If you look carefully, you'll see number 117, which is Mick Andrews, concentrating hard as he rides up the section with his tongue out. The notorious sections at Kinlochleven Aluminium Works that follow the pipeline was and is still as fearsome as ever. And here's Sammy Miller on a Rickman Bull Taco. The previous year, Sammy had been the first rider to win on a foreign machine when he rode his Bull Taco to victory. Could he win again in '66? And did this herald the demise of the British bike dominance? Number 97 is Cutlan, 108 is Scott Ellis on a BSA, 99 is Brian Davis again, 114 is Adset on a Greaves, and 111 is a German rider on a Zundap. Alan Sid Lamkin won the event on a BSA 250cc, and this would be the last time the winner rode a four-stroke machine, until 2007 when James Dabil won on a Montesa Honda. If we fast forward a little bit, 9 years, to the 50th anniversary event of the Scottish Six Days, when Jim Jones and Mike Leedham from the South Liverpool Motor Club decided to take part. We all drove north in the Range Rover, towing the trailer with the two trials bikes, up to Edinburgh. And we had some time for sightseeing, where we went to the famous castle to enjoy the view. Mike's wife Marie sat on one of the cannons, while we all look down on Princes Street. The view from the castle ramparts is quite inspiring. Then it was time to unload the bikes and go to the cattle market for scrutineering. And here Marie tries out a brand new 50cc Montesa. Here's Lejeune preparing his machine number 172, a lovely Honda 4-stroke. Mike wheels his Bull Taco up the ramp to have the parts marked. These are parts that cannot be changed during the 6-day event. Jim is number 179 and puts his Bull Taco into Parc Ferme. Next day, on Monday morning, there were a lot of nervous competitors around the cattle market waiting to withdraw their bikes from Parc Ferme and set off on the long drive north to Fort William. There were some famous sections along the way, and Marie and I would follow in the Range Rover, and first we drove across the Firth of Forth with the famous railway bridge alongside us. I'm sure we will have fuelled the riders as we drove along across the glorious scenery into the Highlands of Scotland. And we arrived in Fort William with just enough time to watch a few riders on the section right in the centre of Fort William and Town Hall Bray. Parc Ferme and service area for the whole week would be based at the West End Car Park in Fort William, right alongside Loch Linney. Tuesday dawned bright and sunny as riders prepared the machines in the allotted work time. This young rider on a three-wheeler, it says in my notes that it's Rathmell's son. Time for Jim to set off as he tried to start the bike. This is one of the hills at Lagan Locks. Who can you recognise? 48 is Duncan MacDonald on one of his dad's special bikes. Dave Thorpe is number 60 on a Bulty. And then Mick Andrews gets a clean, followed by Rob Edwards, who also gets a clap for a clean ride. Mike Leadham foots his way up the section, determined not to stop. And two other riders attack the hill with gusto. One of the Smith brothers, 160, stops, and Jim walks the section as Japanese rider Toshi has a spectacular fail. Then, surprisingly, 220 is Malcolm Rathmell, and he also comes to a halt. Now it's Jim's turn to try the section, and he tries hard to keep his feet up and has a good attempt.
So good to be alive. Motorbiking, 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 motorcycling, moving on the Queen's Highway, looking like a streak of lightning. If you gotta go, gotta go, motorbike riding, motorbiking, we go motorbiking. Motorbiking.
This is the famous ferry at Ballacluish. Sadly, now replaced by a bridge. But the riders had to cross the ferries across the loch on most days. And each day there was a compulsory lunch break for all riders. Here's Mike again on another section as Lamkin comes to a halt. Mike heads off across the moors. Rannoch and Blackwater were infamous, and riders followed the black mark through the heather, through some of the wildest moorlands of the Highlands. And for riders, coming into Fort William after a long day was always a relief. Another day and some more rocky sections. Martin Lamkin again. And 143 is Peter Salt, Cheshire Centre rider, on a Kawasaki. Jeff Chandler is number 150 on an Ossa. It's great scenery up here, but Jim has no time to enjoy the view as he gets yet another 5. Up above the aluminium works at Kinlochleven are the renowned pipeline sections. One long, almost continuous rocky climb beside the huge pipes, with hundreds and hundreds of spectators crowding round, eager to see the riders. OK, so who could you recognise? It's quite difficult to see them, really, as the crowd closes behind the rider as he passes by. Mike gets a clear run, but his feet soon come off the pegs. And on this particular day, the weather had turned a bit nasty, a bit more typical for Scotland, as the riders queue up to wait their turn to attempt the section. The last day was terrible, with torrential rain, and riders sheltered in the back of a van as they waited for their turn to start on the long drive back to Edinburgh. Umbrellas were needed as riders were flagged away. At one of the fuel stops along the road, we tried to dry Mike and Jim, who were soaked. And in the warmth of the Range Rover, Marie and I followed them across the bridge back into the city for final scrutineering. Here the marked parks were checked before riders can be declared a finisher. These photos are of Malcolm Rathmell and Martin Lankin when he won the World Championship in 1975. Jim and I would travel up to the Scottish 6 days many more times, especially when we were importing Motor Gory and later SWM. Gory supported riders were Tony Calvert, Mike Leddy and Ian Wetherell, seen here with his dad, Glenn Scoley and Brian Higgins, now chairman of the ACU. In 1982, we looked after many foreign riders, including Dobson and Chapman from Australia. Dan Suffin from the USA, talking here with the American lady rider Lisa Jones. Bernie Schreiber won the trial, and he's being interviewed along with Martin Lampkin as Dougie and Harry proudly wear their SWM badges. SWM riders Schreiber, Lampkin and Gagliazzi won the team prize and celebrated at the lockside. The following year, in 1983, the event was truly international, for many riders from countries including Guatemala, Hong Kong and Japan. We looked after Bob Clark and his mate from Canada, Thierry Michaud from France and Dan Pyle from Arizona, USA. He amazed people at the start, doing bunny hops and tricks, a foretaste of what trials would become in the future. Fast forward to 2010, when once again we were in the Highlands to watch the classic Scottish trial, and we met Tony Calvert, who had won the event on his Tiger Cub, and Frank McMullen, who used to ride a 125 Gory in the Scottish. And Eric Adcock, who had been number 209 on his Dot machine in 1966, was the guest of honour, and I managed to get a few words with him. Also in the event was the lovely original BSA, last ridden by Dave Rowlands in 1966. The rider from Ireland claimed it still had the same oil in it from 1966. Also riding was Dave Thorpe. Still a good rider in the classic events, but of course it's his son, Dan, who is now the championship trials winner. As these still photographs go past, you'll probably recognise many faces from the trials scene. It's amazing really to think that some of the bikes from 1966 era are still out there today being ridden in trials. Although it's a little bit dubious as to the exact age of some of the bikes. They might look original, but I'm sure some of them are far from it. But it was good to see the event and enjoy the scenery. And long may this wonderful event continue. At the start area in Fort William for the 6-day trial, it was very busy, with riders preparing their machines for scrutineering, and Jim chatted with Martin. and son Dougie as we watched the youngsters, that's the sons of Dougie Lamkin and Hemingway, put their little three-wheel bikes on the ramp scrutineering. In 2011, the Scottish Six Days Trial will celebrate 100 years, a wonderful achievement. And long may this glorious trial, a holiday in the Highlands, continue.